Great. Thank you, Nash. So welcome to everyone and everyone tuning in to this presentation. This is the July 14th, 2022 presentation of the design for the new behavioral health hospital proposed at the site of the old Bethesda hospital. What I'm going to do is just turn right away to the speakers we have today and the panelists who will be answering our FAQs later in the presentation. We'll start with CAP Board Advisor Michael Bjornberg.
Hello, my name is Michael Bjornberg. I'm a registered architect and advisor for the CAP Board, and been reviewing this project as it goes along and doing some research on it. Thank you. Trudy?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. I'm Trudy Trisline, Chief Administrative Officer at Fairview Health Services.
Good evening. I'm Paul Onifer. I'm the Vice President of Operations for Fairview Health Services, and I'll turn it over to Christian.
Good evening. My name is Christian Baumwold. I'm the Vice President of Design and Construction for Fairview Health Services.
Good evening, folks. My name is Jeffrey Woods, Dr. Jeffrey Woods, and I'm the Operations Group President with Acadia Healthcare.
And good evening. This is Webb Embry, Vice President of Facilities and Construction with Acadia Healthcare. Chip?
Can't hear you, Chip.
Hello, yes. I'm Chip Hill, Project Architect with Stango Hill Architecture, and Brad Lipsey is with us as well from Crunk Engineering.
Good evening, everyone. Brad Lipsey with Crunk Engineering.
Thanks, Brad. All right, I think that's everybody. So first, a couple of minutes of housekeeping and background for everyone viewing. This is a live stream that will be recorded and available, so you can come back to it. We'll go through some of the information fairly quickly. The format for the night is very simple. The agenda is straightforward. We're going to have an overview from project leadership, Fairview+Acadia leadership, and then we'll have a presentation of the design by the project architect, Chip Hill. And then we will turn to some frequently asked questions that have come up over the pre-application phase and then the application phase, where we've been working with the community and the stakeholders next door. And we've had a group called the Advisors Design Review Group, and I'll explain that. So my name is Peter Musty, the Principal Planner and the Zoning Administrator for the Capital Area Architectural and Planning Board. The CAP Board guides the planning, zoning, and design decisions in the 60-block capital area, replacing the city's zoning function in the special district. It also includes the Capitol campus and small parts of downtown and neighborhoods north of the Capitol. My job with the large and important projects in the Capitol area is to keep impacted community members informed and involved as much as possible, as early as possible in projects, and then to bring in the information to board members so they can make informed decisions. Board members invariably want to know that the community has been informed and then been given early opportunities to weigh in. This is one of 3 ways to gain information about this project. There are also online gallery of drawings available showing the proposed design, and there will be a walk-in gallery of drawings available in exactly 1 week from 3 to 7 p.m. Thursday, July 21st in the lobby conference room at 50 Sherburne Avenue. So if questions arise during this presentation, please come by next Thursday to follow up in person. And stay up to date by visiting the CAP Board website or sign up for email updates via a CAP Board delivery email subscription, also found at the CAP Board website. The live stream will be recorded and available through a link at the site going forward from right now. And then throughout the evening or anytime this summer you have a chance to view the recording, please feel free to submit questions or comments directly to me at my email address found at the CAP Board website, which is peter.musty@state.mn.us. And we'll have that up in a little bit. For tonight, the first portion of the hour is a brief overview of the project delivered by Fairview+Acadia team leaders Trudy Trisla and Dr. Jeffrey Woods, along with summary comment by Michael Bjornberg. Michael has the statutory duty with two other advisors to thoroughly review proposed projects and to advise the board members and staff before they make decisions on project in the capital area. The second portion of the presentation is a zoom through of key drawings and more detailed information by the project's lead architect, Charles Hill. That presentation will then be followed by a discussion addressing several of the FAQs that have come up in the 6 months of planning in the community. And so thank you, and please enjoy the presentation. Trudy, will you take it away?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Peter. Again, Trudy Trisla, Chief Administrative Officer at Fairview, and it really is our collective privilege for the Fairview and Acadia team to share our work, the progress in our work to build a new 144-bed mental health hospital at the Capitol Boulevard site. We at Fairview are deeply committed to the care, the mental health care of the patients we serve in our community. We're very proud of the fact that we're the largest mental health provider in the state. And this has been a journey for us. In 2019, we began exploring what innovative solutions would look like in terms of the ability to continue to provide that care and help us to expand and enhance our ability to do so. And a really reflective and exhaustive reflection found that a new facility purpose-built from the ground was really the best approach for our patients, for our community, and for the state. And so last year, we were very pleased to publicly announce our partnership with Acadia Healthcare to make that vision of building a new 144-bed hospital real for our patients. And again, it will serve mental health and addiction beds for adults and geriatric patients in a specialized state-of-the-art facility that we just think is an incredible and exciting use of the Capitol Boulevard site, and just a tremendous opportunity for us with our partners at Acadia to continue to serve our community. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Jeffrey Woods, to add further comment. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you, Trudy. And I'd like to thank Peter Musty and the CAP board, as well as Chip Hill, our architect from Stengel Hill. My name is Dr. Jeffrey Woods, and I'm the operations group president with Acadia Healthcare. And Acadia is the largest provider of mental health and substance use services in the United States, with about 240 plus hospitals and treatment centers in 43 states and Puerto Rico. We are so thrilled to be partnered with Fairview and together to make this very significant investment to bring critically needed behavioral health services to St. Paul and to serve the larger Twin Cities regions. Together, Fairview and Acadia will continue the healing tradition at the Bethesda location in St. Paul as we build a new state-of-the-art behavioral health hospital to provide urgently needed care for the community. This new behavioral health hospital will not only provide care and treatment for the community, but will also bring more than 200 new jobs and further economic opportunity and strength for the area. We are committed to working with community stakeholders to create a healing environment that respects the history and traditions of the neighboring community and the legacy and healing at the Bethesda site. Chip, if you could bring up the slide. The new hospital pictured here is a fully integrated and designed to care for the whole person, mind, body, and spirit. We'll be providing services to patients who may be suffering with conditions that include depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, thought disorders, or trauma-related needs. Patients at this new hospital will be cared for by psychiatrists, certified nurse practitioners, and the full range of primary medical and specialist physicians to meet their mental and physical health needs. Most important, this hospital is intentionally designed and purpose-built to provide a safe and secure environment for healing care to occur and to provide respect and dignity for our patients. Among other things, the design includes open sight lines with abundant natural light, elevated ceilings, wide hallways, and open and flexible meeting spaces to support patient safety and comfort. We are very excited about the hope and healing this hospital will bring to the community and look forward to sharing more in the following presentation. I'd now like to introduce or reintroduce CAP board member advisor Michael Bornberg.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Next slide, Chip. I put together a collage here showing the upper slides show Bethesda Hospital when it was built in 1931. This is the east facade facing the park. And then the other one going across the top is the view from the west of Bethesda, which shows you the additions and what's left of the hospital. Down on the lower left is all the additions and the chronology of that project. On the lower right shows you where some of the impacts of the building have been. It opened in 1931. It's had multiple additions. It's currently a 336 square foot complex that is vacant. It is not on the historical register, although it could be considered for eligibility. That process is likely a couple of years out and is not yet funded. While the current complex could be reused for other purposes, it is not suitable for a modern day hospital facility. As such, Fairview+Acadia are proposing demolition to clear the way for a new purposely designed behavioral health facility. Upon analysis and discussions and review, we support the demolition replacement with a much needed facility. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you, Trudy and Jeffrey and Michael, for starting this off. And we will return, and no doubt, to all three of you when we get to the FAQ portion of the evening, where we address some of the issues in more depth. At this point, Chip will go through a presentation of the design. I would like to invite viewers now or going forward to email me directly with either questions, clarifying questions, questions about the design, ideas. There is a period here during the formal review where we want to make sure we're hearing from everyone, continuing to hear from everyone. So again, my email is peter.musty@state.mn.us. Again, over the course of this live presentation, if you have questions, I'll be watching my emails right here, but then I'll be watching them over the next several weeks. Let's turn it over to Charles Hill for a presentation of the design.
Thanks, Peter. Just to level set, overall aerial view here shows the components of the existing campus. We have the original existing hospital here. You can see the 1931 portion is here. The existing parking deck, which will remain, is to the south of the existing hospital. And then a topic that we'll talk about today as well is the existing green space across from the front door of the original hospital that will be maintained as is. That's been a recurring question from the community. As we started the project, one of the first things we did was take a look at any potential of the existing complex for adaptive reuse, as Michael intimated. A behavioral health hospital purpose-built for that function is a very different animal from what is in the original hospital on that campus. There are many things that go into play with a purpose-built facility for behavioral healthcare, sightlines, certain patient room layouts for safety and security, a whole host of other concerns relative to the patient care environment, on-stage, off-stage portions of the unit. So an ideal arrangement like is being proposed for the hospital on this campus is based upon those best practice and newest standards. We did, in the beginning of the project, once again, go back and look at the original hospital. We looked at 3 different scenarios. We reviewed the existing building infrastructure, and in particular, the original 1931 hospital, which is the most architecturally significant of the addition campaigns there. The issues with the original hospital: extremely low floor-to-floor heights of 10 foot 9 inches. A contemporary hospital needs up 14 feet or above floor-to-floor to fit in all of the HVAC, the ductwork, and other overhead elements that are required by code. The existing hospital, really all the units have a very poor geometry for behavioral healthcare. There's no on-stage, off-stage. There's no ability to circulate to different units without going through other units. That's a bad thing from a behavioral healthcare perspective. Patient rooms are extremely undersized in the original hospital. None of them could support semi-private occupancy, which is typical in a behavioral healthcare facility. And none of the patient rooms in the original facility have showers either. So that would take away yet more space within the patient rooms. It quickly became apparent in the evaluation that use of any of the existing nursing units, including the original hospital, was not viable for contemporary behavioral healthcare. We then went down the road of looking at a couple other scenarios. One is, hey, is it possible to use the original hospital building in its 7 stories for the administrative support functions and build a new nursing unit building adjacent to support that? The issues with that are we have a lack of space between the 1931 hospital and Park Street to the west to fit the nursing unit building in that we would need to get the unit sizes that are required. We still have the same floor-to-floor height issues. Transitioning between an addition of the proper floor-to-floor heights and the original hospital would be very problematic due to 10'9" versus 14 foot or more, and how do you make that work? And the floor plates within the original hospital are very small in terms of the spaces that are needed for a behavioral health hospital. And specifically, there are many spaces that need to be on the first floor of a behavioral health hospital: admissions, outpatient spaces, and other things that can't be accommodated in totality within the original plant. And then that second scenario of trying to use the original hospital for that administrative support space became apparent that that's not viable either. And then lastly, we took a look at the most architecturally significant portion of the original hospital, which is the tower element, and wanted to see if that in any way could be incorporated within the design of the new facility. We did a study, an aesthetic study, and then also a functional study. There's very little in the tower. It is basically a stair and a pair of elevators and a few additional spaces, nothing there of any large space that would be useful within the new facility. And the height differential between the original tower and the new facility is extreme, to the point where it would be a very awkward architectural element to try to incorporate that within the space that's actually needed for this purpose-built behavioral healthcare facility. So the end result of that evaluation through several additions is that demolition of the existing facility and construction of a purpose-built behavioral healthcare hospital is the best solution for the patients that will be served by this facility. In terms of comparison of existing versus new, this kind of spells out too that we're dealing with two completely different creatures here, if you will. The existing hospital is about 273,000 square feet of functional space, 10 stories, including 3 stories in the ground, 355 original beds and 90 years of age. A new purpose-built facility, once again, for this population of 144 beds would be 108,000 square feet, 5 stories in height, and brand new with all of the latest features for patient safety, meeting all current healthcare codes, and being able to address the sustainability goals of the project, which we'll talk about a little bit later as well. Something that would be very difficult to accommodate in an old central plant or an old facility. The existing site plan, once again, just to level set with how things are organized on the campus. You can see the red property lines are the boundaries of the property that will be controlled by this new facility. We have the existing former hospital building here, 10 stories in height, Park Street on the west, Como Avenue on the north, North Capitol Boulevard on the east, and then Charles Street connects over to Cedar on the south side of the existing green space. And once again, the existing green space and the gazebo and just kind of the wonderful outdoor space that's there will remain as is and unaffected by this project, but we are using it as an organizer for our new design, which we'll talk about in a second. The existing parking garage, 433 spaces, is actually more than is functionally needed for the new facility. It will be maintained, and we're working with CAAPB board and others to look at other community uses that could basically partake in some of the surplus parking that's within that facility. And we also have an existing parking lot to the east that will remain as is, unaffected by this project, south of Charles Street and east of North Capitol Boulevard. In terms of the new site plan and the new design, we have our new hospital building here, which you'll see in elevation and in some of the rendered views that from the Capitol Boulevard side, it appears to be 3 stories in height, because this side of the campus is about 30 plus feet higher than Park Street to the west. So it falls away. So the building will appear to be 5 stories from the Park Street side. Once again, it will become obvious when we show you the rendered views of that. We are, as a main organizer for this campus and the overall project, at the northern terminus of Capitol Boulevard. Capitol Boulevard does not go through to Como Avenue. At the northern terminus, we have a new roundabout feature that is being planned for this project, and that serves to both align the overall project with the Capitol to the south, and then from an east-west direction, it aligns the new hospital main entrance with the gazebo and the existing green space. So it becomes this kind of central collecting and organizing element for the overall project. We do envision, and this is a question that was one of the frequently asked questions in terms of public art, we do envision a feature sculptural element at the center of that roundabout, which would be at the top of the hill, to basically accent the entire campus and tie into the park or the green space to the east. Peter's mentioned that fits in well with the original Cass Gilbert plan for the Capital District. I think we're on the northern terminus of that district, and that this will be working with Cap Board and with the community to determine what that feature art / sculpture element is in its final vision. Couple just technical notes on the overall site plan. We have very little parking that's being provided is new. We need to have handicap accessible parking close at hand to the main entrance of the hospital. So we do have 6 or so spaces for that is readily accessible to the main entrance. We do have 4 short-term parking spaces. This is for 10, 15, 30 minutes for a family member picking up a patient post-discharge without having to take them all the way to the garage. And then we have a couple transport vehicle holding spaces up here. This is the transport entrance for the facility. A question that's been asked in the past is, how do patients get here? They're generally transported. They could be in an ambulance, or they could be in a transport vehicle, but they don't use sirens when they bring patients to this facility. It's just a vehicle bringing them here. We are planning on realigning Charles Street to better access the existing garage. Charles Street right now is down here, so there's kind of a jog to get there. So that this realignment is part of the overall project, and it will take us into the entry drive for the parking garage. We are including a pedestrian connector from the high side, North Capitol Boulevard, down this slope, this 30-foot or so of slope, with a stair system to connect us to Park Street sidewalks. And then those Park Street sidewalks tie into new crosswalk elements over to Charles Street as well. And this then also south of here ties into the transit network, that's the train stations, et cetera, that are down to the south of the overall project. You can see the existing parking garage here. We have a loading dock and service entrance and courtyard that is nestled between the new hospital and the existing parking garage. And you'll see in some later renderings in the presentation that the impact on Park Street and this kind of service area is much smaller, much less impactful on Park Street than the multiple curb cuts and just kind of back of the house appearance of the existing building that's there now. So this will be a major enhancement to Park Street as we do this project. And then lastly, we are planning for a little bit of future expansion, which would be north of the new proposed hospital here. It would be 2 stories starting at the ground level, the first floor of the hospital on the high side, and then going 1 level down. So this would appear from Capitol Boulevard to be just 1 story in height, but it would step down the slope towards Park Street, working with the natural topography again in the future. And then that would also kind of bring us closer to the sidewalk network on Como and Park, which is also part of the kind of the longer term vision to have the buildings close to those sidewalks in terms of setbacks. Looking at landscaping, this site will be heavily landscaped. We've been through several iterations of this, and we're continuing to work on some of the really important aspects of this, which are stormwater features along Park Street. We have an opportunity with the setback of the new hospital compared to the original building. If you look at the purple outline here, is the footprint of the existing hospital, much closer to Park Street, and also kind of poking out towards Capitol Boulevard as well. So a much smaller footprint that we're using here and setback further from Park Street, which gives us opportunities for stormwater treatment and mitigation. It also gives us opportunities for a much nicer walking path down Park Street and down Como Avenue. We are designating bench locations that will be offset from the sidewalk at these locations that are indicated in blue here along both Park and Como. And we have talked about another frequently asked question, the salvage of brick, potentially some stone accent elements from the original building, working with the demolition contractor and utilizing those elements salvaged as accents within the seating areas, perhaps some low walls, perhaps brick pavers, as part of defining these seating areas to break up that walk down Park and Como. An important part of the overall organization of the site with the roundabout is that we're maintaining and actually accenting the view from Como down Capitol Boulevard towards the Capitol. So this will be an open vista, no landscaping in this area of any height, so that we have a good view or vision from Como to the Capitol. And we are planning on, in conformance with the Cap Board regs, to screen parking areas, this new short-term parking and our transport parking with landscaping as well as part of the overall program. And then you can see tree line marching down Capitol Boulevard, new trees around the roundabout element, and then new sidewalks indicated in brown here that will tie everything around, where we have main entrance to the hospital, a crosswalk to the sidewalk network, which then ties over and into the sidewalk network in the existing green space now as well. I did forget to mention too that the stormwater features we're working hand in hand with the Capital Region Watershed District on the design of those elements, and the purpose of those stormwater features are to detain and delay and treat stormwater from the facility and from the campus before it goes into the broader St. Paul stormwater network. In terms of a couple of other considerations here, mobility and sustainability, we have authored with Fairview and with Acadia a couple of memorandums that are on the Cap Board website relative to these considerations. Mobility, Fairview and Acadia have agreed to the following items. New surface parking shall be limited to what's required to address handicap accessibility and the short-term patient pickup needs. So roughly about 10 spaces plus the 2 transport spaces that's the only new spaces we're building. Everything else will be accommodated in the existing parking garage. Within that garage, we'll also accommodate new charging stations for electric vehicles. We'll have a secured staff bicycle parking area within the garage on the ground level that's close to a staff entrance at the loading dock on the lowest level of the hospital. And right inside that staff entrance, we'll have staff shower changing and locker facilities to basically facilitate active commuter and bicyclist staff use. We talked about the roundabout. It's intended to be basically a traffic calming element to enhance the pedestrian experience. And a couple other things that Fairview and Acadia have opted to do. They'll charge staff for parking within the garage as a way of promoting mass transit, and they will provide subsidized transit passes for staff as well, all part of the mobility considerations documented in the memorandum on the website. From a sustainability perspective, Fairview and Acadia have agreed to the following. We will, this was one of the methods of compliance per Cap Board regs, we will design, construct and commission the project in such a manner that it will voluntarily comply with the requirements of base level LEED certification. LEED compliant design elements will range from the mobility commitments we just talked about. Those all contribute to the scoring system, sustainable site and stormwater management practices. We talked about the stormwater systems along Park Street on the low side of the project. Optimization of water use within the facility, optimization of energy use, and that's a huge factor to get us to that LEED classification. Material selection and local sourcing considerations will all be factored in, and indoor air quality and other environmental strategies are all part of the equation as well to get us there. We will, basically the design of this project with all those elements, and in particular with the design of the mechanical systems, will result in a projected 25% energy savings versus comparable or similar facilities across the country. So this will be one of the most energy efficient behavioral health hospitals in the country, as measured by several different metrics and criteria. We will also be participating in the Excel Energy, or we already are. We've already had these meetings with their Energy Design Assistance EDA program. We're working with them to identify different types of mechanical systems and their benefits and the payback periods associated with those as part of the overall mechanical system selection process. A couple site sections here just to give you a better handle on the existing original building versus the new and scale. You can see in this diagram in red, as you're looking towards the front of the original hospital and the front of the new hospital, the red line indicates the size and scale of the existing tower element poking up here versus the scale of our new building. So when you look at the original hospital, it's roughly 7 stories in height at the top of the tower. Our new building will appear to be roughly 3 stories, a little bit higher to the top of our tower elements, our accent elements. So just a much different building from the standpoint of scale on the overall campus. And then when you look from the Como facade, You can see our dual tower elements here. We're going to talk about that here in a bit. Those are intended to speak to the corners, the street corners of the site, and they also speak to what's happening within the building. But you can see here that there's another kind of accent to how tall the existing building is versus the scale of this. We're less than half the size, almost a third of the size of the existing building on that campus. So much more opportunities for green space around the building and just a much lower scale within the neighborhood with the new facility. And even you can even see in black on some of these outlines here, the bulk of the rest of the hospital, the original hospital in the background as well. Really important design consideration here. When you look at the quality of the original 1931 hospital, we will be using very nice materials on the outside of this building. In terms of a generous use of brick, we've got metal panels indicated here in the brownish tinge. We've got some wood look. It's basically a wood aesthetic panel system that we'll use as accents in certain locations. We have some stone elements as well. This is the gymnasium portion of the building on the left. And then the tower elements will be accented by expanses of glass. The important part, the note about that is this is where patients recreate inside the building. It's their day space. And these corner elements are trying to get as much natural light into the building as possible for the patients from a therapeutic perspective. A couple other, looking at the Como Street facade, you can see the paired tower elements once again. So this is the kind of the main entry tower. You can see the canopy in side view here at the main entrance. And then we have a tower element that's on the corner of Como and Park Street that appears a little taller from the Park Street side as the building falls away. And the important thing about this elevation is you can see once again the differential between Capitol Boulevard and then 30 feet down to Park Street. So we actually have in the building below the first floor that you enter on from Capitol Boulevard, we have two levels that step down the slope below. One is the nursing unit, and the lowest level on Park Street are mechanical, electrical, dietary, and other support spaces for the building. And then on the Park Street facade, setback, once again, much further than the existing original building there. We have the patient floors that you can see here. We have some activity yard walls that'll appear better in some renderings here in a second. And then you can see our loading dock area here as well, set off to the south on this elevation. 3 dimensions, just to give you a much better idea about the project. I'll kind of step around in the 4 quadrants of the project here. This is as you're approaching the facility down Capitol Boulevard, heading north. You'd be heading here and coming around the roundabout to the main entrance of the facility. You can see the tower element and canopy denoting entrance. Gymnasium is here on the left, and you can kind of see the fall all the way down the slope here. And this is where there's a stair system that runs down the slope here from Capitol Boulevard down to Park. And then this is the Charles Street entrance into the garage here as well. From the northeast, and this would be kind of from the Capitol Boulevard Como Street intersection, entry tower, entry canopy, and this is aligned with the roundabout and with the gazebo and the green space across. This looks directly out on the green space. We have our transport entrance off to the right here. You can see the roundabout. And then this is the accessible parking that we talked about, and the short-term parking here, and the transport parking as well. Glass here, once again, facing both to the east and the north. And you can see the parking garage in the distance with the connecting sidewalk from the main entrance of the hospital as well. Looking at from the northwest, this is the intersection of Como Avenue and Park Street here. The main point we wanted to make here is, once again, you can see our paired towers talking to the intersecting corners. You can see from the aerial view here our exterior activity yard for patient recreation and the wall that surrounds that. That will be then landscaped along that wall with a tree line, and then you can see the amount of green space that is outside of that wall element between Park Street and the sidewalk, and including this stormwater features that will be within this space as well. And this is also where we'll have the series of benches running down this sidewalk as you turn the corner onto Como Avenue. Wanted to contrast that with the kind of the view from the northwest towards the existing facility. This is kind of the service end of Park Street. The entirety of Park Street on the existing building is service and deliveries and, basically just kind of back of the house. So, generators and everything else. So a lot of these curb cuts will go away. And I think there's 3 or 4 curb cuts along Park Street now. We'll have 1 when we're all said and done. And there are 2 curb cuts on Como Avenue. We'll have 0 when we're done here as well. So that, infilling this with grass and a new sidewalk system will really improve just the overall feel of Park Street and Como Avenue around the facility. And just a view from the southwest, kind of that same, this is the existing facility and one of the patient towers and just kind of back of the house stuff running down here as well. The new facility will be, just 1 curb cut once again for the delivery area. And then the rest of this will be landscaped, tree lined, in a much more pleasant walking experience, pedestrian experience along Park Street. You can see in this view, much smaller loading and service area. It will be screened with a screen wall system around here that also screens us from the stair system that takes us down from Capitol Boulevard to Park Street. And our extra activity yards are highlighted here once again. And then just this amount of open green space that you see along Park Street that will be a feature of the new facility. And then just one final view, a big feature of this from the community's perspective, and many of the frequently asked questions have been, hey, what happens to the green space? It stays as is as part of this. And you can see this connecting on access to the new facility through the roundabout, through the sculptural element that will be here at the center of the roundabout, and into the front door of the facility in the distance. So with that, Peter, I think that's what I have.
Thank you, Chip. I really appreciate that. And so we're at our minute 38 of the hour. We're not going to go further than an hour tonight. And before we proceed with the next part of the presentation, I'd like to remind viewers, if you have any questions or comments that you wish to share right now or going forward, please email me at peter.musty@state.mn.us. As mentioned earlier, project information and my contact information is found at mn.gov/CAAPB, or just Google CAAPB. With Charles covering many of the common questions during the presentation, we'll now turn to some of the remaining common questions, the frequently asked questions that have come up during the planning and the design of the project. It really started late last year and then evolved with what we called the Advisors Design Review Group that Michael Bjornberg and I convened. And many of the folks on this call have been very good participants with that group. That group is community reps and owners, Capitol Heights Block Club, and Town Home Association leads, and Education Minnesota. All of the neighbors and neighboring institutions representative of the state of Minnesota, and some of the folks that have residents of the community and folks that own commercial buildings right on Park Street. And through that process and through conversations we've had and different interactions, we've had questions that have come up. I'm going to pose the first question, and why not redevelop the site for housing, backing way up? And then can a larger site incorporate housing in any way? So looking at that bigger picture of a lot of people, is maybe the only thing as important or more important in this community than healthcare and behavioral healthcare is the housing need we have. And so why not redevelop this site for housing, and can the larger site incorporate housing in any way?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Peter. This is Trudy Trisla from Fairview. And really, again, referring back to some of the opening comments, this really was a very careful review by us as an organization. And after that, a very careful consideration, we concluded that the significant mental health needs of the patients in the St. Paul area and the region will be best served by a dedicated behavioral health care facility. This decision is really driven by patient care needs and the attendant needs of patients in terms of privacy, security, and just really, again, as you've heard throughout this presentation, the ability to serve patients into the future with a new facility that really is purpose-built to best meet those needs for decades to come.
Thank you. And a second question, and again, these questions, there's probably 10 or 12 that have come up repeatedly, and we're going to write, document them in addition to any new questions we get tonight or going forward, and put them on the website as well, with the questions answered as well. The second question, so will the private green space, it's a private green space that's been really functioning as a passive public park for the community. Will that be changed, or will it go away? Will it eventually be redeveloped?
Yeah, as Chip referred to, our plans are, as we build the facility, that private green space will really remain unaffected. We'll continue to, with our partners with Acadia, we'll continue to support that neighborhood request to use as appropriate in terms of, time, place, as we have done in the past.
I appreciate that, and I would, if you could bring up that perspective again of the gazebo, Chip. We could talk a little bit about the next question as well. And Trudy or others, if you could speak a little bit about it, and I know Michael could as well. Will there be opportunities for art or public art on the site?
Well, this is Jeffrey Woods with Acadia. One of the things that I am very proud in all of our hospitals is we allow the hospitals to be part of the community and allow the community to participate in the selection or the creation of art for our hospitals, both internally and outside of the hospitals. And so we will welcome community input, but also community contribution to the aesthetics of the facility to ensure that it matches the cultural and social interests of the neighborhood and the broader business community as well. So we certainly will welcome that.
And to that end, we have certainly the intersection or the center of the roundabout is a very important element on the campus, and what that becomes. The team is committed to working with members of the community to determine what's most appropriate there at that really important intersection of the end of North Capitol Boulevard. We've also talked about the possibility of somewhere on campus that will work to identify some remembrance, if you will, of the role of Bethesda Hospital in the community as well. So we're actively working towards that as part of this project.
Peter, I'd like to add that in my research on this facility and walking through it, there's been a history of art integrated throughout the building and throughout the complex, and I have to assume that tradition continues on. But it has been a remarkable history of artwork, original artwork, spread out through the complex and shared by all. And there's even a Granlund sculpture that's part of the facility. It is part of their DNA.
And I will tell you, in my experience, many of our hospitals, the community arts associations will contribute art to the hospitals that is displayed in the interior of the hospital and sometimes on the exterior of the hospital and around the property. So we're looking for those relationships and those influences that will help sort of define the culture and the style of the hospital going forward.
Thank you. And I know that it's come up also in looking at the history, Michael, you can speak a little bit more about Indigenous history, not just of this site. And this is a high ground of really for a long ways and the views from here. But Michael, can you speak a little bit more the Cascade plan, but prior to that, and Indigenous history and opportunities there?
Well, I'm not an expert on Indigenous history, but I do know that that there is much more sensitivity, certainly, to understanding it and celebrating Indigenous culture. I can speak greatly to Cass Gilbert. I've done a lot of research in Cass Gilbert, and that axial relationship with a roundabout to the capital was really important to Cass Gilbert. Axes and formality were fundamental to his work. So I can imagine that establishing that on this would have pleased him.
I would turn to another question, and is important in the community. There's housing and healthcare and military, but jobs is really important. And so people ask questions about opportunities for both local and union labor at the site, both during construction and then ongoing. You address that?
Absolutely. This is Jeffrey Woods again with Acadia Healthcare. For the design construction phase, we would expect that there would be union, non-union opportunities to participate, certainly local. It is our preference, and we know it's Fairview's preference as well, that we use local contractors and subs to facilitate the construction of this project. And so we'll be looking to the community resources for that. Going forward, we have not had conversations. It's too early in the project with respect to the hiring practices for the hospital itself. But we expect those conversations will evolve as this project moves forward.
Great, appreciate that. We get those questions. We are a planning and zoning body, but in looking really at the long range impact of the physical development. But those questions come into us and they're important in the community. So we want to make sure we're transparent with you on the questions that we get. We also appreciate the transparency you've been willing so far to exhibit with this project.
Yeah, and I will share with you, across our broader enterprise nationally, we have relationships that are union, non-union, variety of different arrangements. So there's not a particular scenario that is better or less favorable. It's more about what best serves the needs of the hospital and the community, and we'll make those determinations together as we get closer to this project being completed.
Okay, I'll just have had one comment here. And it's a reflection of the good neighbor group process that I think the county and the shelter, Bethesda shelter, wrapped up. There's been a comment that the public space really remained available in the summer. It's really become earlier this spring and summer. It's become a nice public space, and very much appreciate the idea of conserving the public space in the community. So positive comment there.
Great.
And I do have one more question, but we'll see what if that is already been addressed. So what I'd like to do with 10 minutes left in the hour, we don't have to use that time, is turn back, and if there's anything that Michael, as an advisor for CAP Board, you'd like to address or bring up, or any detail that Brad or other folks that haven't been able to speak that you'd like to bring up, please do. Point.
Peter, I can probably elaborate more on historic significance of the building. Went through that fairly quickly. We have had a lot of conversations with SHPO to try to understand if it has been deemed eligible, if there has been a surveys on the building, and what that status is. What we have found is it has not. I believe a few years ago it was determined possibly eligible, but there hasn't been a study to do so. That study was planned to happen, and then that was going to be followed up with another study which was not funded. But fundamentally, a building cannot be designated historic if the owner does not wish it to happen. And that is the case here. So that is not a path forward.
And I do have a question I would like to ask, and it just are questions that the community's asked, and the idea of a community space or a community of any kind in the building. And could you, Chip, could you speak to the compatibility of that public-private? And talking about the purpose-built nature of the facility.
Yes, contemporary behavioral health hospitals like this are secured facilities for the safety of the patients and staff, and mixing public and others with that is not typical, and it's not good practice. So generally the response would be no, we don't provide publicly accessible interior space in these types of facilities.
The only exception to that, this is Jeffrey with Acadia, would potentially be the use of the gymnasium for community events from time to time. We do hold certain activities that are community-centered activities within the gymnasium space, which has the ability to be entered separately from patient care areas so that we're not intermingling with patients who are in treatment.
Well, this is an investment in the Capitol Heights area, neighborhood, and in the capital area and in St. Paul. And you're going to be a new neighbor. You are already a neighbor, but the idea of setting up relationships, these things will evolve as the project goes forward and the building ages as you go. But we want to make sure we're addressing all the questions, and this was part of that tonight. Trudy, Dr. Woods, Webb, any comments that you'd like to make in terms of your project, and then I think we'll sign off.
Well, we can certainly leave the evening to all who are listening and to all who are here. We're just, again, appreciative of the partnership with the CAP board, and again, reiterate our excitement about the ability to serve our patients in this way, and again, in a way that will serve patients for decades to come. And I think I speak for both Fairview and Acadia in our excitement for the ability to serve our patients in this new and effective way. Jeffrey, any closing comments?
I do. I would also like to thank the CAP board, and I'd also like to thank the neighbors, the neighbor associations that have been so thoughtful and deliberate and intentional with respect to this project and the influence on the design and the manner in which this project would move forward. As a clinician, I am deeply rooted in the idea of ensuring that we care for every person who requires care, and especially those that are the most vulnerable. And individuals with mental illness or substance use disorders are among the most vulnerable individuals. And to have this opportunity to be of service in this community, this great community with a great tradition of mental health services, and to meet a need that is not yet fully met, we're grateful for the opportunity.
Nice. Thank you, Webb Embry with Acadia, and just really excited for the fantastic opportunity that we have here, given the location of this project and the impact within the community in a number of ways. Not only do we have great long-term plans with the partnership, but upcoming immediate plans with the construction of a new facility will create a lot of interest and excitement and partnership locally there. So that we look forward to, and very much can't wait to get started. Thank you for your support and time this evening.
Well, thank you, everyone from the Fairview Acadia team, and to everyone that has dialed in tonight, viewed the presentation, or has been able to catch this going forward. Please also dial in the CAP board website for more information, to share your views, submit questions, and to get details regarding in a week, the in-person gallery of drawings will be offered next Thursday, July 21st from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. at 50 Sherburne. That's right up at Cedar and Sherburne in the administration building where the CAP board office is. So we will be hosting that. Come in right off the street. Conference room is right to your right. We will be there to guide you in. And thank you all again, and good evening.
Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ending live stream, Nash.